At first glance, 2016 seemed like a disappointing year for cinema, but only because so many of the headlining releases were so meh. I was really looking forward to films like Batman v Superman, Captain America Civil War, Star Trek Beyond, Deadpool, Ghostbusters, Independence Day Resurgence, Suicide Squad, and Rogue One. But none of them were better than fine in my opinion, and half of them were downright ugh. But when I took a second look at this year's filmography, I found plenty of movies that were spectacular even though I wasn't anticipating them at all. So here you have it, all 10 of my favorite films 2016 in unranked alphabetical order. No doubt you're already questioning some of my tastes, so let's get right to it. Number 10. The Huntsman Winter's War.
What are you doing?
You can't tell, you daft boy. I'm marrying you.
There were plenty of perfectly functional, cheesy action movies in 2016, but only one, in my humble opinion, which wasn't getting high off of its own farts. The Huntsman Winter's War has uncharacteristically engaging fight sequences, genuinely impressive CGI, and more than a few surprisingly emotional plot twists scattered throughout the second and third acts. I was not expecting that from this film. Sure, everyone's hamming it up, but everyone's hamming it up beautifully.
Do you still believe that love conquers all?
Maybe not all. Just you.
The Rotten Tomatoes consensus is that this film is entirely unnecessary, and that might be true, but unnecessary isn't the same thing as unjustified. In a world full of creepy blockbuster makeouts, it's nice to see a courtship as unproblematic and hot as this one. I mean, seriously. What a time to be alive. Number 9. Moonlight.
What you looking at me like that for? What, man? Come on, you just drove down here? Yeah.
Moonlight is 2016's critical darling, the Golden Globe Best Picture winner, and my most retweeted review of the year. So I almost feel like I should be explaining not why Moonlight is on the list, but why it's not higher. But no, I'm not going to assume that Moonlight's likability is a foregone conclusion. It's slow and meandering, and the plot could fit on the back of a cocktail napkin.
Little man.
It tells the story of a young boy growing up in a rough section of Miami as he tries to cope with a drug-addicted mother, near constant violence, crippling poverty, and of course the fact that he's gay. Frankly, I wish someone had spoiled this movie for me, because I made certain assumptions about it going in that turned out not to be true at all. I went in thinking that it was going to be the story of this young man coping with the fact that he's gay, perhaps hiding it from fellow gang members or convincing friends and family to accept him, but that's not what this movie was about. It's about a man who takes all the years depicted in the film just to get to the point where he can admit, even to himself, that he's gay. Powerfully underrated stuff. Number 8. The Arrival. Excuse me, Arrival. Director Denis Villeneuve is a guy to watch. Prisoners, Sicario, and Arrival are all beautifully bleak morality conundrums, with a kernel of irreducible optimism, the likes of which nobody else is doing right now. You'd think each script was written by the same guy, but no. Apparently Villeneuve just knows how to pick them. Arrival tells the story of 12 alien craft that park themselves above a dozen seemingly random spots around the world and then just sit there. Which throws all the world's governments into a panic. A brilliant linguist played by Amy Adams is then called in to try and figure out what the aliens want, which involves learning their complex, circuitous writing system, which has its own repercussions for both the world and the main character. This movie felt downright Crichtonian in its procedural exploration of the linguist's discoveries, and it reminded me more than once of one of my favorite novels, Sphere.
So, first we need to make sure that they understand what a question is. Okay, the nature of a request for information along with the response. Then we need to clarify the difference between a specific you and a collective you, because we don't want to know why Joe Alien is here. We want to know why they all landed.
With that said, the third act does feature what I'm going to call the mother of all time paradoxes, which kind of kills the finale for me, but other than that, it's pretty damn good. To say more would start spoiling things, so suffice it to say, even if you haven't written any Lois Lane Hawkeye fanfic, you should definitely check this one out. Number 7, The Nice Guys.
What are you doing here?
Holy shit, you got her!
You're supposed to be at Jessica's.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. March. My sister kicked us out. She's having a guy over.
Your sister's such a slut.
Yeah, I know.
Nobody writes awkward violence better than Shane Black. I'll be the first to admit that a lot of his material is decidedly hard to watch, but even when he shows us something off-putting, there's usually this warm, beating heart at the center of it to anchor our empathic sensibilities.
No! Deep breath.
Here's a scene from The Nice Guys that's particularly emblematic of these sensibilities. The film opens with this kid reading a nudie mag. Not only is the centerfold unapologetically titillating, so is the way it's shot. Then, a car drives through the kid's house. He then goes outside to find the actual centerfold model lying close to death in the wreckage, revealed to the audience in much the same way that the centerfold was, with a slow pan across all of her naughty bits. At this point, my objectification sensors are registering off the charts. Not only is she filmed like an inanimate object, she's dying. It mixes objectification and violence in a way that makes me really uncomfortable. Are we really supposed to be titillated and not horrified by these images? But then, just when I'm about to lose all hope in this film, the kid abandons his magazine, and he covers the girl up. Now, I'm not here to assign authorial intent, but what I get from this scene, and from the film as a whole, is that Shane Black wants to appeal to our sense of empathy, but not without forcing us to come to terms with our baser sides first. Because when you think about it, you really can't do much good until you acknowledge your potential for bad. You need to acknowledge that duality. Very few filmmakers are making films this honest, or hilarious.
You guys want to see my dick?
Nobody wants to see your dick, dude.
20 bucks?
We already paid you 20. What am I saying?
Oh, all right.
Number 6, Zootopia.
Sir, you said there were 14 missing mammal cases.
So?
So I can handle one. You probably forgot, but I was top of my class at the academy.
Didn't forget. Just don't care.
Sir, I'm not just some token bunny.
Well, then writing 100 tickets a day should be easy.
For me, animated films have kind of become predictably praiseworthy in recent years. Yeah, they're good, but they all seem a little too generically good. Zootopia upended all of that in 3 important ways. Firstly, yes, the movie was funny, as are all animated flicks these days, but I feel like Zootopia's jokes weren't splitting time between the adults and the kids. Even a kid knows that the boring, bureaucratic world of adults moves at a glacial pace.
2 9
THD03.
T
HD03.
H
D03.
D
03.
0.
3.
Hey, Flash, want to hear a joke?
No!
Secondly, I thought Zootopia worked just as well as a buddy cop movie as it did an animated adventure. Like Osmosis Jones, but without the dick jokes. Thirdly, we all know that every animated film is contractually obligated to present us with some sort of moral at the end of it. And where most of them settle for something generically timeless, like believe in yourself, family's important, make sure you find a man who will love you even if you've never spoken to him before, Zootopia's message about prejudice and racism manages to be pointedly contemporaneous without also being cloyingly topical.
I mean, it's not like a bunny could go savage.
Right, but a fox could, huh?
Nick, stop it. You're not like them.
Oh, there's a them now.
I don't even know how the filmmakers did that, but they did. And they managed to showcase the use of xenophobic fear-mongering as a way to rally a voting bloc long before Trump even announced his candidacy.
So that's it. Prey fears predator and you stay in power?
Yeah, pretty much.
It won't work.
Fear always works.
Speaking of evil Artiodactyla, number 5, The Witch.
Ba, ba. Ba, ba, ba. What ails Caleb, Black Phillip? What ails him? Did Thomason make him sick in the wood?
What say you?
Black Phillip saith you are wicked. He told me too.
Damn your Black Phillip.
He said you put the devil in Caleb. That's why he's sick.
The Witch tells the story of a family that makes its way to the frontier to start its own colony after the Puritans proved too irreligious for them.
Then take your leave and trouble us no further.
Almost immediately,
Boom!
weird shit starts to go down. The baby getting kidnapped in the first 5 minutes of the film is just the beginning. It's only a family of 6, and yet witch hunt fever very quickly overtakes them all. Which just goes to show you really only need 2 people tops to commit an atrocity.
You must tell me, Thomason. Tomorrow I cannot keep secret of this. A council will be called, and thy life is thy life.
Will you not believe me?
It took me months to finally settle on my favorite adjective to describe the witch. Uncanny. The witch disarms you, and makes you accept the uncanny in a way that most films rarely ever even attempt. And you only realize just how bonkers everything was in hindsight. Like this line here.
Wake! Wake from this! Did ye make some unholy bond with that ghost?
It wasn't until someone quoted that line back to me after my screening that I realized I could have laughed at it. I'm never specifically trying to assign authorial intent, but what I took away from The Witch was a disturbingly cautionary tale about how marginalized groups tend to fulfill the predictions you make about them if you're going to oppress them without cause. Long story short, don't go on witch hunts. Number 4, Love and Friendship.
How jolly. Tiny green balls. Yes. Good tasting. Quite sweet. What are they called?
Peas.
Oh, yes. No, I knew that. I recall now. I must get Collins to cultivate these at Martindale. Novelty vegetables.
Or as I like to call it, Pride and Prejudice for cynics.
What a mistake you made marrying Mr. Johnson. Too old to be governable, too young to die.
Where Pride and Prejudice is a lyrical romance with nary an iota of satire in it, Love and Friendship is a winking subversion of Regency-era etiquette, not to mention most of modern etiquette. And I think I like it even more for it.
Lady Susan. Lady Susan Vernon.
How dare you address me, sir?
Lady Susan.
Be gone, sir. I will have you whipped.
Outrageous. Have you never met him?
No, I know him well. I would never speak to a stranger like that.
Kate Beckinsale plays a notorious 18th century socialite who schemes to marry a well-to-do suitor who was originally intended for her daughter.
I understand Lady Susan possesses a degree of captivating deceit, which might be pleasing to detect.
Love and Friendship reunites Beckinsale, Chloe Sevigny, and writer-director Whit Stillman, whose hard-to-summarize coming-of-age drama The Last Days of Disco is one of my favorite films that nobody's ever seen. And they're a perfect fit for a project like this.
My daughter has shown herself to be cunning and manipulative. I couldn't be more pleased. A Vernon will never go hungry.
I give Love and Friendship a special place at number 4 on my list because it's probably the least pitchable idea of the whole bunch. Which just goes to show the value of an idea can't always be communicated in the space of an elevator ride. But still be ready to pitch your own material in 10 seconds or less. Number 3, Green Room.
Those of you attending the Racial Advocacy Workshop on Wednesday, assume it's on unless you hear otherwise. And remember, this is a movement, not a party.
Joss Whedon has said that Alien 3 made a big mistake and that it was the first Alien film that killed somebody we didn't care about. I think this is a good movie-making rule of thumb. Make every death matter. Make every death count. Make us feel it. Cannon fodder is boring at best, and it trivializes death at worst. Green Room is a film that makes every death hurt. It tells the deceptively simple story of a punk rock band who witness a murder in a remote Nazi bar.
Excuse me, all. Oh shit.
and are subsequently forced to negotiate their release, and then fight for it.
You're killing us. Keep the gun!
Hold on.
No!
I hadn't felt this much grief for a set of characters since Cabin in the Woods, and there's no supernatural element in Green Room to buffer your shock. That grief is not without cause. Green Room reminds us, at an eerily opportune time, that our securities and values are anything but categorically secure. And at a time when this shit is actually going on in the nation, it's nice to see Hollywood taking the subject so serious. Number 2. Elle.
Je crois que j'ai été violée.
Violée?
Mon Dieu.
En vrai? Quand ça?
Jeudi à 3h.
Et t'as rien dit?
Eh ben, je sais pas quoi dire. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut dire? Mon Dieu. Oh, qu'est-ce que j'étais conne de vous le dire.
Mais non, t'es folle.
Un Piperheizig. Très bien. Attendez 5 minutes avant de l'ouvrir.
America had 13 glorious years with Paul Verhoeven, from 1987 to 2000. But we spent an ill-advised proportion of that time bashing his masterpieces. And so he returned to his native Netherlands in 2000. Verhoeven was finally willing to come back to America to produce Elle, but financing refused to materialize, and so he eventually turned to France for help. France was supportedly so welcoming that Verhoeven is now considering doing all of his future films in France. So nice going, America. We blew it. Twice. And the proof is in Elle. Elle tells the story of a successful French businesswoman who is raped in her home by an unknown assailant in the opening scene. What follows is anything but your typical movie about a woman coping with such a violation. I don't want to go too far into the weeds here, but the basic gist is that Michelle doesn't trust cops, so she has to rely on her own resources to figure out who raped her. But the film also makes a point of not making the rape the subject of every single scene. Michelle also has to oversee the launch of a new video game at work, meet her ex-husband's new girlfriend, deal with the emotional baggage of a long-incarcerated father who's up for parole, and handle a deadbeat son who's unwittingly raising a child that isn't his. At first, I saw all these subplots as a detriment to the thriller aspect of the film. But then I thought, maybe it's not supposed to be a thriller. Maybe it's a movie about how life goes on even in the face of unrelenting trauma. And then Paul Verhoeven went and said as much in pre-release interviews. So yeah, nice going, America. 2016 really wasn't our year. Number 1. Maggie's Plan.
If it weren't for Lily, I would say I'd made a terrible mistake.
It's too bad you can't give him back to his ex-wife, right?
Maggie's Plan tells the story of Maggie, a young woman who falls in love with a married professor while she's trying to get pregnant via low-budget in vitro. Maggie and the professor have a whirlwind courtship, and eventually, the professor leaves his wife and marries Maggie. Within 3 years, the marriage flatlines.
Do you want to hear your horoscope?
No.
And Maggie comes to the conclusion that her husband and his ex really were perfect for each other, and so she hatches a plan to get them back together.
Yes. Well, it's obvious that you're still in love with him.
What the hell are you playing at?
This pitch may sound particularly mean-spirited, manipulative, and heartless, but that's what makes the film such a delight. All the characters come off as extremely sympathetic and even downright sweet. People do make mistakes, but everybody learns from them. It all feels very equitable, even if socially taboo.
Yes, I wanted to return your book.
We could do worse by way of protagonists. And can someone please cast Travis Fimmel in more comedies?
When there's an actual lady involved, it's a different story. I made you extra, just in case you spill some.
Thanks.